Welcome to Under the Fringe. We are your hosts, Andy Yablonsky and Julie Babin, two interior designers with almost 50 years of combined experience. And while we love design, our passion has really become helping the next generation of designers struggle less, earn more, and create more freedom in their lives. We offer a whole host of support options to help you create the structures you need to really thrive and grow. More to come on that at the end of the show.
Hello.
Hello. How are you today?
So great.
So great. That's a great mindset. It's a great mindset.
I think that's what we're talking about today, yeah?
It is what we're talking about today. Well, we're talking about two things that go hand in hand. Mindset is certainly one piece of this puzzle. And then we are also talking about recession proofing our business.
Yeah, I think we've just been really coming to an awareness that we could very well, quite possibly, be in a recession and it could be getting worse. And so why not really arm ourselves up as business people, smart, very, very, very smart business people. Just be honest about the fluctuations that happen in any market in any given time. And why not set your business up so that you're fortified, prepared. I think it's kind of like a diversified investment portfolio and thinking about our business in that regard instead of just thinking of it in a one track mindset. So Andy and I talk about this a lot, and we decided that we should really create an episode around it.
Well, I remember you and I were taking that financial class a while ago, and the instructor was talking. She's like, if you own a car, it's not if it's going to have a repair, it's when. And so it's not a surprise. There's no surprise in that repair. It's understanding that you need to save for that repair so that you're prepared. And this is the same exact thing, right? Our economy is always fluctuating. There are always things that are coming in and out. And let's be honest, owning a business is a risky venture. I mean, yes and no, right? Like I never have regretted one moment betting on myself, but I don't always know where my clients are coming from. Like, maybe there's a mistake that I made that I need to correct that's going to cost more than the markup covers, right? So there are moments, or there's just something that happens on the job and somehow, and I really don't know why this is another episode at some point. Like, how does the interior designer suddenly claim the responsibility for all the shit that goes wrong on a job? Like, that's what we should talk about at some point.
Yeah.
But I think that the model of treating our business like a home or a car, like we have to invest in it. We have to make sure that the, repairs are covered when there are moments that there's a breakdown.
Full coverage, like your
Yeah.
insurance.
Yes, full coverage insurance. So how do we get to a place where our business has a recession proof armor, if you
And
will?
I feel like I think of it as armor. Like you don't want to have a hole in your armor down here, but you have your,
Oh,
your body plate on and your back, but then you have this hole down here. Well, we're going to patch all the holes in this episode today
yeah.
and hopefully get you to think about things that, I mean, maybe you have already thought about them and maybe it's just feels scary and we're going to help you deal with that, or maybe you haven't thought about these things and this is a great time to start planning because this is for sure a good time to really identify where your holes are and things that you've been wanting to do or haven't thought of doing but are excited that we mentioned it in this episode, and to start doing them. So we're going to give you some discussion points and then also some exercises.
Yes, because it's not enough just to go through the task list, which we have a pretty robust task list,
Yeah.
um, to sort of anchor you into better financial security. But there's also, I think we all feel it, right? Our world is a little bit bananas at the moment. There's a lot going on. Ooh, I just got a little emotional actually. um,
Yeah.
there's so much going on. And I think that with everything that is happening, um, our nervous systems are on kind of a like, what is it, level orange,
Yeah, like a
right?
fight or flight response almost.
Yeah. And
Definitely
so,
not a resting state.
yeah. And so, being an emotional creature, I feel a lot of that. I know Julie feels a lot of it. We all feel it, right? Especially, I think as creatives, we definitely tend to, also be really empathic. And, I
Yeah.
was listening to a podcast with Adam Grant yesterday, and he said, empathy is the thing that causes burnout, and compassion, which is, um, in the face of all the things that are happening, action is what creates, um, empathy is the thing where we feel it, but we don't feel like we can do anything about it. And compassion is where we feel it and we do feel like we can do something about it.
And
I
taking
can't,
action really helps with any anxiety that you're having.
yes, yes. And so I can't do everything. I can't do something about everything, but I can do something to calm my nervous system to create a business where I feel pretty great about moving into the next year. And my fear, which we're all experiencing in various ways, is definitely like riding in the back seat instead of shotgun or like right on my lap. Um, and
And
so
also because business people, like really high level business and investor, um, in any business industry across the board, when the economy turns down, that's what they call like an opportunity landscape. So like the
correct.
economy turns down and people who have more of a employee mindset, they go into fear and they pull back and they tighten their belt straps.
100%.
But actually people who are understand leveraging wealth and creating businesses and creating opportunity, they actually see those downturns as times as opportunity.
Yep.
And so you really want to think about that, because it's sort of like the masses are going to go into fear.
Yes.
And so what does that mean for there's always opportunity.
Yeah, and it might mean that it's not in this field of interior design. So, one of the things that we want to discuss
Yeah.
is diversifying your income stream. So,
Mhm.
having one stream of income or two, if you consider markup, which I do, your
Yeah.
second stream of income. So, you have fees and you have markup. So that's great to have two, but if it's relying on the same client funnel as you've always relied on, that could get a little tricky if your clients are themselves not recession proof. And
Mhm.
what do we mean by that? So, most of us want to be able to work with people that are outside of a recession bubble. This is a luxury service. We want to attract luxury clients. And I'm not
Mhm.
saying that that means you can't work with your neighbor or your friends. Um, but I want to make sure that the majority of your business is coming from people who don't even notice a recession. And they are those people that are capitalizing on the recession, that are noticing the opportunities, and they have specifically saved so that they can invest and reinvest in their businesses that are making them money at any time. So, whether this is a passive income opportunity, whether it's real estate, whether it's um, digital products, I mean, there are quite a few ways of creating other streams of income. But the idea is that as much as you've invested in yourself and in your business, you want to make sure that you are investing in other areas so that when one thing dips, you're still making the same amount of money or close to it, right? Um,
Making
and this
sure
is,
that you have those type of clients.
yep. Yeah.
It also, like you were saying, clients who also have multiple streams of income is
Yep.
one of the top things for the service part of your business, those are the people that you want to be serving. Ideally, if you're wondering who you should be marketing to, that's a great quality to have. And keeping really strong relationships with those people.
Yeah.
And because those people have multiple properties, multiple houses, and Andy and I have seen this again and again. Those type of clients will suddenly 3 or 4 years later be redoing something that maybe you did
Yep.
with them.
Oh, 100%. I mean,
So there's sort of this never ending repeating with
yep.
clients like that, and obviously taking really good care of them, having really good relationships with them will bring about this loyalty
Yeah.
from them to you. And Andy's really good about, what do you call it, lifetime clients.
I mean, I just love cultivating relationships with great people. And so for myself, I think that, well, one, I didn't have children, so interior design is like my baby. Um, and my clients in many ways are like a surrogate relationship, right? Like I love them. I love their homes. I love their families. I love their pets. I love, right? There's so many things that it's easy to become attached to because they're wonderful people. And so it's easy to really, I think, give graciously. Even though I am a service provider, I'm also a trusted part of how their family runs, because oftentimes, when I get brought in over and over again to a home, I have now developed relationships with clients that are 12 years strong.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
and
think the clients appreciate that as well.
yeah,
It's sort of like the hairdresser that you go to forever. I mean,
that's
people,
it.
it takes a lot off of their plate as well to have someone that they know and trust, and there's no more learning curve.
Yep.
Um, I
Yeah, that's a big
think
one. I
it's
think a
very
learning curve.
mutual.
Yeah. Well, it's super beneficial. It's beneficial to both me and to the client. Like if something breaks, I have, even though I've sent along a spec book, they don't look at the spec book, they call me so I can look at the spec
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
Right? Or, oh, that bathroom's getting a little shabby. I'd love to, spruce it up. What can we do to make it look better? And then it's just a discussion. Julie, you were
Sometimes they buy
saying
new vacation houses.
all the
That,
time.
like, you
Yeah,
did their main house, then they have a vacation house that one of my clients, lifetime clients, has done. It's both a vacation house and a Airbnb.
right.
So that was for sure a design project that they needed. They called me right away.
And
Uh,
they have a second stream of income because it's paying their
yeah.
mortgage.
Yep.
So that's,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
probably more than their mortgage if they're
Mhm. It is. It
entrepreneurial.
is, because
Yeah.
that's a 6 month. I forget what you called it the other day. Or sorry, monthly. That's what I meant to say. Yeah, you have to do monthly
Yeah.
minimums.
Yep. Yep.
Or when you have vacation rentals, doing minimums is also a great stream of income.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a bunch of different ways, but I do think that understanding that having a variety of ways of getting paid is really essential in a service business, especially in a downturn economy. There's just and again, if you can keep your luxury level clients who affected by recession, then you're in a really good position. But again, we are talking to, I think I also heard this quote on the podcast from Adam Grant that said, um, the best people that you are in a position to help is the former you. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think you and I started this because we really wanted to speak to designers who were starting out and perhaps didn't have the foundation that we had.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know, like I remember in 2008, when that bubble burst, I had just left Scabolo Design. Um, I was going to work for an architect where I was going to be the new head of furnishings at his firm. And the real estate disaster happened, and all of his clients, I mean, save for one, really just like dried up in an instant. And he was like, "Hey, really sorry. I
Mhm.
don't have any more work." And I was like, "So what?" I just
Yeah.
left a job where, um, they had only luxury level clients, and that firm, was alive and kicking until I think the designer that bought it decided to close it during the pandemic. But I mean, they never lacked for um that kind of clientele. And so I was in a position where that business wasn't recession proof, and I literally had to go out and hustle for three different designers, um, and pitch my services as a senior designer, basically contract position. So I became a senior designer for three different designers, and that was really challenging.
Yeah,
Uh,
that is hard to have three different organizations, and they all have different goals,
yeah,
and to split your time. I mean, that is it's good that you were able to survive. And I think part of what Andy's saying is that we've overcome this stuff, that you were able to survive. That's great. But then you
definitely
also
survived.
taught yourself, and then you taught yourself how to thrive.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
two different phases in the process. And that is why we're doing this podcast, because we did overcome a lot, and found new we founded new companies.
yeah,
Actually, we both have multiple companies.
yeah.
But it was through the process of overcoming this stuff, and a lot of it was mindset.
Yeah, and it's just, that designer, that architect, is a great guy. He's still a good friend. But it was a really scary moment that I don't wish upon anybody. And
Yeah.
so, as we are, like, I think everyone was expecting the recession to happen this year. Um, and what we keep seeing in the economy right now is that jobs are actually thriving, but everything is so expensive that people just aren't able to make ends meet. So having a job is great, but if you still can't pay all your bills, the struggle isn't gone. And so I think more and more people are just finding themselves in really tight situations. And that is what we want to avoid for all of our listeners, that is something that you don't experience. And so to that end, so multiple streams of income, yes, but then what can you do in your own business that can really create more diversity within
Yeah.
your offerings? So we talked about that earlier.
Yeah, there's quite a few things that you can. And the other part of the offering is, like, sometimes I don't know if people realize, as designers, that is a service business. So your service is, you're trading your time for dollars.
Mhm.
And aside from a recession, what if you just need to take time off? If you stop working, there goes all the money, right? So
Yep.
that's what service is, the easiest business to, like, get off the ground and just kind of do. But then the downside is that it's your time. So if you stop, it stops. So these are the other things that you can also do, which will help you, obviously, for recessions and any other need that you might have. Like, what if you need to stop working for a period of time for whatever reason? So a couple of the things that Andy and I were shooting around before we started talking here. I think one of the things is, let's say you have a bunch of existing clients and they're lifetime clients and you're really happy with them, but the recession does come. One of the things that we do is we work with that client around phasing their projects and creating budgets for those phases. So that's one sort of step down from the basic service category, right? So there's that area you can really work with them. And honestly, Andy, you made a really good point. Sometimes when you break the project into phases, let's say the client's like, okay, well, let's only do this now, but this other thing later.
Mhm.
That you just created more, you actually created more work, because that now, oh, well, down the road at this point, I'm going to have another project start.
Yep.
So now I can put that on my calendar.
Yeah, so your pipeline gets a little bit fuller versus just one thing. I mean, again, and we would want everyone to be using the tools like the forecasting document and things like that to understand
The
what you
offer.
could take on in any given moment. So maybe phasing it actually works better just because your pipeline is already full, but you want to keep that lifetime client happy. Um, maybe it's an opportunity to create more work down the road. Um, so it's essentially just lengthening out, but I think it's it's like everything, right? If you're doing it all at one time, there is an economy of scale. Like if you're working on design, you're not stopping and starting. There like the billing is high, but I don't think you probably capture all of the billing in those moments where it's actually easier if you did break down the projects into individual pieces and you can actually see the value of each one and you would bill accordingly. And so
I think when you break
yeah,
something up, when you don't break something up and it's one big project, you create momentum. And then
that's true.
when you break it up, you have these like,
The stop
it's
and
not
start.
that it's heavier lifting, but I do think it's more time. Like I'm doing this big
It
house,
is.
and so we can pick out all the stone right
Yep.
now.
Yep.
But if I was just doing room by room, we'd have to go to that stone showroom, 10 different times.
It's true. I mean, that's just the
Just
way.
more
So
time.
I think it's advantageous for the client because their spend is smaller
Yeah.
on the overall project, but the design fee is higher in the end. But it's sort of, this is like putting something on a credit card versus paying cash up front, right?
Yeah.
It is, you have an interest rate, so you pay a
Yeah.
little more over time, but the pay amount is more comfortable and it's just a little more digestible than like the whole kit and caboodle all at one time. So
Yeah.
everybody
And it
understands.
depends on what works for your company. Like if you have a big
Yeah.
group, maybe you want multiple big projects. But if you have a smaller group, maybe you like that there's these phases, because then oh, this is coming in the spring and this is going to come in the summer.
Well, and I mean, as I said, like working on that forecasting document, I think it's important for you to understand like what your capacity is. So if that big project isn't isn't digestible for you in that moment, you're going to have to
Yeah.
phase it anyway,
Yeah.
whether, right?
Yep.
So I mean, I just think that there's it's the way of looking at it, but it's whether you're billing hourly and going along over the course of a year, sometimes a project could take, or if you're wanting to like knock something out super fast, like sometimes I will accelerate timelines for a kitchen
Mhm.
or a bathroom because it's just easier for me to get it all done. The client
Yeah.
appreciates having it completed, and I know another project is coming in, so I can easily work on that versus the delayed thing where all of a sudden, like, I have too many things going on and it's a little distracting.
Yeah.
Uh, so there's benefits to both,
It's
but
very unique based on
yep,
your given time frame, your given pipeline, your given fee
yes,
forecasting, like Andy
yes,
said, and your given size of your team, size of your overhead,
yeah,
are all factors that you have to figure out. We're just trying to help you think about them. So
yep.
the other thing that we said is, let's say it's a full-on recession and some of your projects have dropped out. What do you do? Are there different ways of offering your services? And so we came up with these ideas, which, I mean, you've maybe heard this before, but there's all the e-design. You could just do sets of drawings and planning. You could do like a whole room design or multiple room designs. And the other one that we also really like is offering, maybe you just offer e-styling, that they
Mm-hmm.
want to redo a room with art and accessories
Yep,
and new um the smaller pieces, just change a color, change pillows, change a drapery. Maybe you're not buying new rugs and sofas, but so we were calling that e-style. Anyways, those are kind of the e packages. Those are packages that you could create.
yeah, and I think those are super helpful because they won't take you a lot of time, but they'll be very impactful to a client. And so there you're not charging for the hours, you're charging for the value. and the value would be higher than the hours that you spend. So it could be a recycled design. Like I have so many designs that sit in my client folders that, you know, options 1 and 3 are rejected and number 2 is selected. Well, all that design is done. Why couldn't I pass that off to somebody else um
Yeah.
in another scenario? So
Yeah. And a lot of people really appreciate that. I mean, sometimes we just take photographs of like color palettes that we've already created, but maybe it doesn't get used. But I just say, well, let's post it on Instagram anyways.
yeah,
Because and you get a lot of compliments on stuff like that. So just remind yourself as a designer, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but they can't do what we do.
yep.
And so even though somebody isn't going to go with that one package like Andy just said, somebody else is going to think that's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like your own private collection. And
It
those
is.
are real things that you've created.
And you could get paid twice. So that's the beauty of that part is the design's already done. You are now offering it to someone else, and the value is that it is already done, but it's not free, right? Doesn't get passed along for nothing. It's your intellectual property, and that is worth a lot.
Yep.
So price accordingly.
Essentially, that is a product at that point
Yes,
because
it
you've
is.
already created it. So now it's not a service, it's a product. It's something that exists. It would
Love
be
that.
like I went to the flea market and I bought this vintage sofa and I recovered it and now I'm going to sell it. And so it's really switching from service to product. And product is cool because it's not the same amount of heavy lifting, right? So I just want to keep you guys thinking about stuff like that. The
Yeah.
other thing that we have, I don't have specifically, but Andy and I know a, a good friend and colleague that we've worked with, and she had this great relationship with a certain vendor and company. And she had this long relationship. So maybe you have certain vendors that you have a really long relationship with, and you've already established a wholesale pricing with that vendor. So you could start selling those products as an online store, like a
Mhm.
digital store, or
Absolutely.
or online to other designers. Or if you had a little mini window in your commercial office, it could be a little mini showroom.
Yeah.
But again, that's another idea for a product, physical products.
Yep. And I think that those are all really helpful, and there's stuff that you could do now, right? This is
Yeah.
all like these are all pieces that you could start adding additional services to your website at the moment. You could start, and I I am not in love with the idea of necessarily doing a whole bunch of e-design, but as Julie said, like if it's a product, all in on that. Like
Uh-huh.
and I'm not like I don't have the patience for e-design. I just that's not my strong suit. Um, but could I sell a product? Could I have my assistant take over that portion? Like everything's already spec'd and we're just talking about sizing and quantity at this point. It's not so it's like this many pillows and you get these art pieces and these accessories and
Yeah.
maybe that new sofa and a new rug. Um, like those are all products you've already picked out. Now it's just about ordering them. And so um that is it's such an easier space to wade into, especially for me in terms of like I'm not working then with the client. Like they see something online, they're like, oh, I love that, I want to buy it. It's sort of like going online to the citizenry, and instead of them picking out the pillow and the candlesticks and the draperies and all these other things, like I've already done that for you. All you
Mhm.
have to do is pick, I love this is great, you know.
Yeah.
It's really easy. And it's well designed. And I think
Yeah.
that's the piece that is people are looking for that. And they also, I think people want something that is reflective of who they are. So going to the citizenry or going to West Elm or going to some of the other places in the retail space doesn't fit everybody. It doesn't
Yeah.
suit everyone's taste because not everybody is going to be like a rubber stamped West Elm client. Some people are just love it and like enjoy it, and it's so them, and they find a lot of value in that, and that's fantastic. But when you're able to market something that you have designed with your own branding and your own point of view that someone else really connects to, that's fantastic. And then, maybe down the road, they're going to come back because that client now has a better job and they have more rooms. Maybe they've had to move and
Yeah,
suddenly,
that's true. And then that first, actually, we have a really good friend who does that, where she really cultivates these clients over the years, and
yep.
then suddenly it turns into a lifetime client.
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways of getting lifetime clients. And sometimes it's just about really looking at somebody and seeing their potential and knowing that they
Growing with their
are
potential, like growing with them.
exactly. Yep.
And that's a relationship skill as well. We always like to remind you guys about relationships. The other thing with the idea of, I've created this design, it got rejected from this other project, now I'm selling it to this other person, because I like marketing and branding a lot, and that's important, because that's how you tell people that your business is in business, is through marketing and branding. Well, branding is the way of telling people about your business without having to say anything. You just say it with the branding. But what's cool about that is now you've just created content.
Yeah.
Right. You've created social media content. So you can say, here's this house or this style or this vernacular, the design vernacular that I've created. You could put that out there for other people to see. And now you're reinforcing what your brand is.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes that's good for the designers to see it themselves, because I notice a lot of times designers don't think they know what their brand is. And I can always see it because I like that stuff.
Yeah.
I think it'll also reinforce it for yourself. Like, oh, I see here's my stuff on my Instagram. I see what I'm doing. I see that it's a collection, like Andy has artwork that she creates. It's like you start to see your collections. And so anything like that you can use as content, that's also a big value to your company.
Well, I mean, as you just said, staying relevant and staying visible during a recession means that, I mean, no one's going to get off their phone, right? Like, I think as much as we can listen to the experts about how much screen time and all this other stuff that's going on, our phones are, I think, here to stay for better or for worse. And so being a part of someone's feed is going to connect to some people, and those are the people those are your audience, right? And we want that visibility, and we want that recognition, so that when somebody does have their financial picture super solid and they're ready to invest in interior design, that they think of you. And what I love about that is, so we're going to talk a little bit more about this in depth in a few minutes, but one of the mindsets that I've adopted over the years is that there is no competition.
Yeah.
And because I don't look at our business as pie, where there's just like so many projects to go around, there is literally multi-millions of dollars in our area and across the world. And I'm not limiting myself to one specific area. I'll go anywhere. I love to travel. So, and I wager that most of us love to travel and love doing things that are outside of our typical target market. And so the idea that we are in competition is something I just abandoned a long time ago. And so comment on other designers' posts, enjoy what you like, fill up your world with things that are beautiful, and that because I think when we promote other businesses, we are being an expander for other people. We are allowing ourselves to really open up and become this sort of global citizen and global support network.
Yeah. And it's cross pollination. I've never
Yep.
met a designer that isn't busy.
Yeah.
And so if you're interacting with other designers and then they know what you're all about as a designer,
Yes.
so you
Yep.
represent the type of projects that you like, they always most designers are like turning away business.
Yeah.
And so the more of those type of friends that you and colleagues that you can cultivate, they're gonna pass things on to you, not to mention that you can learn from each other, right? Obviously.
Yes.
And the other thing about marketing and being on social media, because I know that a lot of people are scared of it and this and that, but with marketing, the saying is tip of tongue, top of mind.
Yeah.
And so if you're just like always on it, even though, maybe nothing's happening, but you're there, you're there, you're there, you're there, then one day someone's going to need something and they're going to be able to remember your name because
Totally.
they just are used to seeing you come through. So tip of tongue, top of mind.
Yep.
Just remember that like it's not annoying as the person who's consuming the social media to see your posts day after day. Like it don't think most people think, oh, I've already posted that. No, no, no. Like keep putting it out there because eventually there's gonna be a need. And I think also it reminds clients like they're ready. Oh, they're ready. They're ready. So when I have a need, I know that they're gonna be ready. Like we had this project that we just landed and we just kept following up with them until they were ready to like look at the contract and then they approved it. Um, but we just like would really keep in touch, like text and call and stuff like that. And so that client knew A, our level of enthusiasm, and B, that we were ready to go.
Yep.
And busy people, our clients are very busy people. Everyone's busy.
Yeah.
And I think that design is a what's the right word? It's sort of like it's expected now, like at every price point. Like I feel like back when Andy, you and I were younger and getting started out.
Thank you for saying younger.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Getting started out, design was very like elite. Like it
Yeah.
was like, well, these type of people can have it. But
Sure.
for me at a lower income
Hmm.
bracket, I didn't expect that at the hotels that I stayed at or the restaurants that I went
Right.
to. But now it's everywhere. Like every price point, young and old, people expect like things to be nice. And
Yeah,
it
I
wasn't
think that's true.
always like that. Do you remember?
Yeah, I think it was pretty common that I mean again, I want to reinforce a couple of things, right? Like Target has a slogan right now, design for all, and that's great, right? Studio McGee is at Target. They just brought in a line of tile at Ann Sachs. They're doing a bunch of stuff and their price points are very affordable, and that's great. Like I think design for all feels like a great idea in theory. And I say that with like some hesitation because yes, I do think that people expect good design everywhere. And I do think that more and more people are interested in
Yeah,
design.
I think they're more
I still
interested.
think it's a luxury service. Like
Mhm.
beyond you going to Target and finding stuff that Shay McGee picked out and is peddling to everybody. That if you want a great kitchen remodel, if you're interested in a smashing bathroom or a design worthy living room, that service is expensive. And because it's not that design. One, I've invested a boatload of money in my education, so that's part of it. I come with a lot of skill and now I come with a lot of experience, but the other piece of this that whether you went to school or not is this is your artistic statement, right? Like this is your intellectual property. And I know that we want to be paid well for that because it
Yeah.
is valued. People, because everybody expects it. It's totally valuable. So there's this concept that I think is a little bit dangerous. And especially as we're talking about this recession proofing
Mhm.
idea, we
Yeah.
want to make sure that we are working with clients who are beyond the recession, right?
Yeah.
That
And not
they're above
falling
it.
for the person who comes along and says, well, what was that thing we were just talking about a minute ago? Someone who's just trying to just slash and burn the budget, basically, like something that you wouldn't normally do, but
Yeah.
they're framing it in, well, it's a recession, so can we just get it cheaper? And like we're trying to say, those are not your lifetime clients.
And I don't know that, I
Not
mean, I
gonna
think
wanna
everybody
work
has to
with them.
decide for themselves who to work with, but for me, that would be a red flag and a no.
And I
And
think it's
so,
different if you're in a more like immediate need and like maybe
absolutely.
you do take on certain projects because you literally need to pay rent tomorrow and
Yep.
everyone's been there, everyone understands. There's no shame in that, but just being aware of like, okay, I'm doing this right now, but I'm not going to do it on the next one.
Yeah.
And building yourself up by being conservative financially so that
Yep.
you're not just taking those things on, but just being aware of that, those type of people who want to slash and burn the budget just because the economy has gone down.
Yeah.
It
I mean, I
might
think,
not be the type of person because actually too, those tend to actually take longer. Like funny enough, the people who want to really find the best deal and it's
oh,
like those are a lot of hours. There's a lot of hours in there in reality. You might not want to be honest about it, but there really are. So I think
we
that's
should
another
do a show on
avoid that one.
client types so that like who to embrace and who to walk away from and who to run away from.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole
Or
thing.
just, I guess maybe just understand, because again, if you are doing hourly work, or especially if you're doing a flat fee, you really do want to understand who that client is.
Yeah.
And so the flat fee thing comes in pretty handy because you are, by virtue of the scope of work, limiting the amount of options that you show. And then if they don't decide to choose those options, you move to a hourly rate. And that tends to curb people's desire for like show me 10 things.
Yeah. Yeah. You
So
really
you do have more control, but um those could take a lot longer. And is if you've agreed to a flat fee and you don't know who that client is, and you're not great at reinforcing the boundary of like we've gone through the one presentation and the one revision, and now we're moving into the hourly, that could be a problem. So I think really understanding like how you work, what your boundaries are, which clients you're willing to take on, um, and making sure that you're respecting your process so that the client can respect the process. Because I think
yeah.
that's another key piece, because you don't actually want to be working for less than what you are, your actual hourly, um in a situation where then you've also got maybe more work coming in that you can't get to because you're working on this other thing.
And
So,
we do have several other episodes about those like boundaries,
yep.
and what you were just describing also becomes a double negative in your bottom
Yes.
line if you can't get to the ideal stuff because you're dealing with this coupon cutter. But we have other episodes for that. And I think one of the big things here, Andy, is to really help them, because if you're in a recession, it can be extremely terrifying and there's fear, right? You can
So
be
much.
completely paralyzed. That's happened to me quite
Yeah.
a few times. And I think this is actually one of the reasons why we started this podcast in the beginning. Like, of course, we couldn't be doing this podcast and offer and what we're offering if we didn't have all the work experience, that the top level work experience that
Yeah.
we do have. But the other thing that we always say is the mindset. Like, I don't think that we would have created these multiple companies that we both now have without our mindset. And so I think we should talk about, you know, fear being paralyzing and just those immediate needs, but then also like moving towards a growth mindset, which can be hard at first. Like, growth mindset isn't always the first thing that you do. because you might not even know that growth mindset is possible or that anything is possible. So I think we should talk about how we've done that and what are general things that you can do every day, like what can I start doing right now and what can I work towards doing? What are some exercises that I can have?
Yeah. So mindset is a word that is thrown around a lot. A lot, but it is the practice of really being attuned to your thoughts and choosing your perspective in life. Um, because you're thinking constantly, whether you are aware of it or not, whether you're aware of your thoughts or not. And this practice is really making you aware of your thoughts and allowing you to then shift your perspective if needed. And I mean, who doesn't need that on a regular basis?
I think
But
it's really common to not be aware of what you're thinking.
I think it's super common to not be aware of what you're thinking. And I mean, so you start out as a little being in a household and you adopt all of your family's cultural beliefs. And like by family cultural beliefs, like your actual family culture, heritage culture, in addition, if those are present in your family, in addition to any beliefs about working hard, money, discipline,
Anything from generations past.
yeah. So there's all kinds of things that we grow up believing. And if you've ever heard your parents say money doesn't grow on trees or the only way to make money is through hard work, those are beliefs. Those are beliefs that were just programmed into you by your parent or some other family member who wanted you to understand maybe that saving was a virtue, or there's all these like so many money beliefs. And so that is one set of beliefs that can create a lot of fear, because if you're working hard but you're not making enough money, how do you make more money? Do you work harder? What if you work harder and you're still not making enough money, right? So that belief doesn't always net us what we want. And of course, we know that money doesn't grow on trees, but somebody's printing it somewhere, right?
Sure.
How do I get to be the one in charge of that printing press? And I believe personally, as I've watched my own finances transform, that it's my mindset that controls the printing press. Um,
Exactly.
it controls the clients that come in. It controls the amount of money that comes in. It controls the money that leaves, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Because you could be getting large sums and they could very quickly just
disappearing.
as well.
Absolutely.
Common
Yep.
pattern.
Yeah. So, I found this meme earlier. I've seen it a couple of different times, because this is part of the mindset. And this is the quote. So witches call it spells, religious people call it prayer, spiritualists call it manifestation, atheists call it the placebo effect, scientists call it quantum physics. Everyone is arguing over the name, but no one is denying the existence.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have a whole section of our manual, and part of our platform is all about manifesting, spiritualists, manifesting. And so whether it's your prayers being answered, or whether it is for me allowing the universe to line up what I am looking to create because I have adopted a belief, that's happening. And so again, like I could tell you that I just gave you a Tylenol for your headache and I maybe just passed you a Skittle. But if your headache goes away, it's because you believed that that thing would work. You believed it was medicine, and that belief caused your headache to recede.
Yeah.
So
I think everyone's experienced the like, oh, I bought a red car and now I see red cars everywhere.
yeah,
That's what this, like, I think we all know on some level that type of energy exchange. Like the red cars were always there, but you just see them now because you just bought one. You have one now.
I love that. Yeah. That's the reticulator, the active reticulator or reticulator. I can't remember exactly the term, but
But
uh,
that's what's happening. And what we're trying to say is there's all these thoughts going and beliefs. Well, a thought that you repeat becomes a belief.
yep.
So the thoughts or the beliefs are under there. So we want to encourage you to know, well, what's under there? Because that is the quality of what you're bringing into your life, whether it's your employees, your clients, your friendships, everything that you do in your life is coming from um, this magnet that you have.
Mhm.
You have a magnet inside of you. And so if you want to change the quality, which is also part of like, well, believing that it's possible, it is, anything's possible. That's just what you're attracting right now.
Yep.
And so I can't stress enough that understanding the way that you're thinking is, I think, literally the most important thing that you could ever do.
Yep.
Because even if
So,
you don't feel good, like, oh, I have a friend who's been sick for a while, like a flu, cold thing. And even if you don't feel well, like I've trained myself, like there was times in the past where I didn't feel good. I had a cold or whatever. I was sick with something. And I would also have bad thinking at that same time. Like just because I didn't feel good physically, my
mhm.
thoughts just went in the toilet. And now I don't that now that doesn't happen. If I don't feel good, my thoughts are still up. But that's because we've trained ourselves to, like, one of the things that Andy is really good at saying is everything is always working out for me.
Yep.
And because she was able to cultivate that in herself, and of course, maybe you say it at first, and the first part of you just says, this is bullshit. This is total bullshit. That's okay. Like, what is that voice saying? That voice that says that's bullshit. Like, pay attention to what that voice is saying, because that's an old like belief. It's coming from somewhere and it's probably popping up a lot.
Yep.
And so we want you to first, I think we said that we want them to first start paying attention to what they're thinking, because then you know, it's sort of like right now it's an invisible enemy. So if you don't know who you're fighting against, you can't do anything about it. So you
Yeah.
want to know, what's the enemy saying to me? Okay, wait, those thoughts aren't me. That was a big one for me. I used to think it's me. These negative thoughts are like
Interesting.
me,
Yep.
like
Yep.
identify with. And then you start to go, hold on. I'm going to write them down. And that's why I spend a lot of time writing. I
Yeah.
write it out a lot, like pages and pages. Sometimes when there's a big thing going on in your life, I'll do like 5 pages of writing, because then it's like, okay, the thoughts are over there on this piece of paper. That really worked for me a lot. And then I could
Yep.
start to come back and go, I don't know where these came from, but like that's not me. They just came from somewhere. So my, like Andy was saying, your family, your culture, wherever it came from,
The
maybe a
world,
lot of times
right?
you hear stuff your grandparents, you
Yeah.
weren't even around for the grandparents to say it, but it's just in your blood, like somehow. So
Well,
like
I
what
think,
are those things?
yeah, there's plenty of things that are like flying around outside of our family structure, at school, at
Yeah.
work, at, uh, partners' work, kids'
Friendships. Yep.
friends, your friends. Like there's all kinds of things that get brought in. And if you're not aware of those thoughts to scrub them out, like one of my friends does this process called brain brushing, and she's like, it's just like brushing my teeth. I just go through my head and I'm like, all right, I'm going to scrub out the negativity. I am going to wash away this thing that doesn't serve me anymore. I'm
Yeah.
going, and just sort of like does this like little process of moving through her brain, and she literally envisions like a little toothbrush just going.
I love that. I love that. And this
um
is daily practice. I think
yeah.
that's one of the things about mindset that people get wrong. That, well, I thought positive, during that retreat,
Mhm.
and during those 5 days when I went on that business retreat or that yoga retreat in Mexico, I was positive there. So, well, you need to do it. Like if you wanted 6-pack abs, you would know that if you would had control over them every single day by what you ate, the
Yep.
amount of exercise that you're getting to maintain those six-pack abs, and your brain is exactly the same. You do need to brush it every day. I love that.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, it is a muscle. Mindset is a muscle that you have to exercise. The good news is there's no heavy lifting. Well, that's not true. Sorry. That's
I was like,
a
wait.
lie. Totally a lie. It's totally a lie.
I have a lot of heavy lifting.
There might be some heavy
And it
lifting. I'm
gets
not gonna, yeah, I won't, I'm gonna go back
Well,
on
I
that.
think I heard it described as like before you really dig into it, they're like big boulders that you sort of
Yeah.
have to start to move out of the way. And then the rocks get smaller and smaller. And then like we're still dealing with stuff, but there may be these smaller pieces. And so, yeah, you build that momentum, you understand the big roots, you start to get those out of maybe pull the big trees out of the ground. And
Yeah.
I don't want to say easier because I don't think anything is easy, but I think you learn it, you have a muscle for it,
Yes.
and you built up strength. I guess that's a better word.
Yeah. I think one of the things so we were talking about this, I don't know when. We talk about this often, so it's this is not a new topic, but the problems don't go away. They get
Yeah.
easier to solve, and the solve happens faster, and it's because of the mindset work, right? So that's the critical component that if you, I mean, everybody talks about meditation, but meditation is fantastic. I meditate for probably 5 minutes a day. um I do it in a pretty quiet way. I'm not like, meditation has changed my life, but it has actually changed my life. But I'm not like sitting on the corner preaching that everybody needs to meditate, because meditation for a lot of people, it used to be dance for me. When I was dancing, I absolutely felt like I was in a state of theta, like where ideas were coming in, and the movement in conjunction with sort of like the concentration of the movement allowed my mind to really open up. And so a lot of people do walking meditation. Some people find it when they're running, other people in a spin class, or, in their own spin session, something like that. It doesn't have to be this incredibly quiet practice, but I do think sitting down to pause and breathe is a really great way of starting a day, and it doesn't have to take a long time.
Mhm.
Um, I also think journaling is fantastic because it does allow you to understand what you're thinking. So sort of that free writing, like whatever pops into your head, that practice gets easier. I was pretty resistant to that when I first started doing it. And it's still not my favorite practice, but I do think it's super effective for so many people. And I would highly encourage people to try it. Um,
Some people get stuck on journaling. You have to sort of have the right prompts and
yeah.
stuff like that. But then we've also discovered, like actually both Andy and I, one of our both like, you know, ways of creating value and giving back for people, but then also for us personally is to talk.
Yeah.
So that was another big one that we used. And I think we should talk about right now the what was that thing you said earlier? Oh, right, the venting process versus
Oh,
the
I was just going to say,
complaining habit. I think
yep.
that's a good practice to talk about.
So, one way of noticing what you're thinking is to pay attention to what you are complaining about. So, there's a little bit of value in complaining, and it is this: complaining gives us a snapshot into something that we desire, something that we don't have. It's a problem that we want to solve. And I think that it is the value is there for that reason. Um, I don't love complaining on a regular basis because I think it's a little bit toxic, and it also is contagious, and that lowers our vibration, right? So we want to stay in this sort of higher vibration positivity, not toxic positivity. So this is the part where I love being on a no complaining diet. I love not having a lot of complaints happening, but we also are humans and we want to be able to process what's going on. And so venting is a way of doing that. And so you can get out the thing that's bugging you. You just want to make sure that you're getting all the way through it so that you're actually completing that process. versus like if you're always venting about the same thing, that might be an actual form of complaining that you've just turned over into a vent or a rant. But having someone hold space for you while you're venting or ranting without offering anything is a way of actually letting you complete your frustration and getting that out. And there's a couple of other tools that we offer on the website that are really helpful for dealing with things like that. And so I think that when you're able to process, but noticing what these things that you're thinking about or talking about, like if it's a repeating element, um,
And it is. I'm just gonna put it
you
out there.
yeah, there's a lot of things that are
It is
repeating
a repeating
elements.
element.
Yeah. And so how do you turn that complaint into a desire? And then how do you draw that desire into your network? So some of that is noticing the complaint, understanding what it is you're wanting that maybe you don't have. And instead of focusing on the not having it, if you turn it around and focus on the having it, um, that there is a higher probability of getting it.
Mhm.
And so, this is a whole like, I mean, I've been doing this now for 13 years, so it's not a small practice that I've created.
Yeah.
But changing your beliefs and creating, certain affirmations. I can tell you a story about when I was buying my house that um I had a meltdown, like a
Yeah.
legitimate
It
legitimate
was like
meltdown.
a upper ceiling problem or
Oh
like
yeah, it was this whole thing where the
it's a breakthrough when you're moving into a new level
yes, for sure.
that
And
you
so
had to break through.
I did I had a breakdown to break through. But I had to call a friend, to phone a friend,
Yeah.
and Laura was like, this is not who you are. You
Yeah.
Everything is always working out for you. Like that's a core belief that you've adopted. And I was like, oh, thank you for the reminder. You're so
Yeah.
right. I just have to like really refocus and look at, and I am telling you, so we had this conversation and I was like in a serious breakdown. When I say serious breakdown, it was like massive crying. I was like, nothing is working out for me. Everything is falling to shit. I don't know how to change this trajectory. I really want this house, and now I'm not going to get it. And I was mad and I was sad and I was like, and I just felt like this problem was beyond my control. And that is not a mindset that I carry around very often, but um I was feeling the growth. I was
Yeah.
literally like in this moment of right, I'm the seed about to break out of my shell.
Yeah. It's
And
the breakthrough, like a tear that wall down.
yes. And so without going into the whole story, after having that conversation and being reminded of things that I really hold dear to me, which is the universe has my back. And so I sat literally in contemplation for probably 2 hours, just repeating that over and over. It was soothing to my nervous system. I was thinking about it. And I had this moment and I was like, fine, that is who I am. I am like the universe totally has my back. And if the seller wants to back out and not blah, 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 and all these other things, I will find something else that is the thing for me. Like I know that because everything is always working out for me, if there is a wall that's suddenly thrown up in front of me, it's because I wasn't meant to go this way. So I will find a different path. And then literally 24 hours later, I got a call. Seller agreed to go through with everything. The appraisal was like
Decent
less,
energy.
the energy was totally shifted. I
Yeah.
ended up getting the house for like $36,000 less than what I had offered because the appraisal came.
Wow.
It was like this whole thing where I saved all
That's
this money.
huge.
It was bananas.
That is
And
huge.
yeah, it was great. And I just,
Getting $30,000 in your pocket.
it was. And so, and what I had to remind myself of was even though that process was really hard, I got stuck in the hard and I didn't allow myself to see the potential of, like, I couldn't have known I was going to get the house for $36,000 less. I couldn't have known that the appraiser was going to talk to the realtor and get this additional information that would lower the value of the comps around me. I couldn't have, right? There was all these things I couldn't have known, and I couldn't really have seen how they were going to work out in my favor. But when I allowed myself to shift back into my belief that everything is always working out for me, those are the things that showed up.
Yeah.
And so, again, this is the confirmation bias. When you
Huge.
are believing that things are working out for you, if you're willing to sit in the hard and get to the other side of what is difficult, you will see the thing that worked out for you. And I mean, there's two things about that belief. One is I am always looking for the positive side of how that works out, because truly everything works out, right? There is always an unraveling of a problem and it goes one way or the other.
Yeah.
And
Like even if you hadn't gotten the house, there would
it
have
would
been
have worked out for me.
yeah, it would have worked out for you
Yeah,
because there probably was a better house, you know.
that's
And so
correct.
I always say rejection is protection. So if something looks like it's not working out, what if you're just being spared from
Exactly.
shitty house and
Yes.
you're supposed to have this other house? And I think when you can take that viewpoint, and that also allows you to not be ruled by your emotions.
Yeah. Well, your emotions are going to get you sometimes. They always do. But I think that
This
the
this energetic is really what's at play, because when Andy had her breakthrough, then it allowed this other thing to come through, and that was a physical sign that she
yeah,
had done that
yeah.
work.
It's
And I've had that
also
happen with clients where I've taken a weekend off. I was like working too hard and working too much, and I was in that burnout mode.
yep.
And then this one particular weekend, and I talk about this a lot. I have a person who's taught me about mindset, and we were talking that day, and she said, "Do not do anything this weekend, anything." And that was hard for me because at that point, if I rested, I still felt guilty, so I wasn't really resting, and that was a mindset problem. And so I was like, no, check the guilt at the door and literally just go into deep rest, and whatever that looks like, sleeping in and rolling around, like however much rest I needed, or just walking, or not having my phone with me, or just whatever it was. So I took 2 full days off.
Yeah.
And Monday morning, first thing, I get this call, and it's a client that I've worked with in the past. I hadn't talked to them in like a couple years,
Mhm.
but I had thought of him over the weekend, and I was like, oh, I wonder what's up with them. I kind of knew they had a project on the horizon, but I wasn't like in current touch with them, so I didn't know the current state. He freaking called me that Monday morning, and within that one phone call, I mean, I got a project that was a 2-year project right then and
Yeah.
there. And that was like, I mean,
And
that's locking in your income for 2 years. I
but
mean,
you
that,
also got the brother and the other brother.
yeah, yeah. And then all this
So,
other repeat business and family members and all this other stuff. So, I
yep.
mean, and that we've talked about quite a bit. And Andy has it too, where you go on vacation. And
Yeah.
so I've had countless breakthroughs when I rest. It's this thing. And I think of it as a door. So I feel like, for me personally, and maybe you guys can relate to this too, but I feel like I push myself a lot to do all this stuff. And so what is the energetic of that? It's like you're pushing against this door and you're sort of like keeping the door closed. But then the energy of me resting is just like I'm laying back. I'm nowhere near the door. Well, then what happens? The door opens and something can come in. I was like,
Yep.
I felt like the universe or God or whatever you want to call it was saying to me, Julie, I wanted to come in. Thank you for stepping away from the door. And the door analogy really helps me.
Yeah.
I don't know if it helps you guys, but I just always, and I'm doing it actually right now currently, because that was I don't know, over a year ago. But I've had quite a few stories like that, so I can go on and on. But recently I switched it to like it was along the lines of relaxation. And
Mhm.
it was this week. I started it last Friday night, and now it's a whole week later. And the way I approached everything and got my work done just felt like incredibly easy.
Yeah.
And it felt like everything was aligned. And then some cool stuff happened along the way, and kind of some news and family stuff. But I was just like, okay, this is working.
I was going to say, I think that choosing your perspective. So when you hold the belief that rest is valuable, when you adopt the idea that everything is always working out for you, right? I know that everything is always working out, but when I decide to tack on the for me, that means that I am willing to suspend my disbelief or my other belief that like the universe is working against me, and I'm choosing that it's working for me. You're choosing the belief that when you allow rest and you surrender, that more comes in. And I 100% believe that. So, whatever mindset you're adopting, I think that the important piece of that is finding something that really does align with your belief, understanding what your beliefs really are, and that could take some time to work out. Um, but having the ability to notice your thoughts, decide if they're working for you. And if they're working against you, figure out how to change them, because that
Yep.
really is so you can recession proof your business, but you really also have to recession proof your mind. And I think that is for me the biggest takeaway, because when I am able to, you know, put on the armor in my head and
Mhm.
like clean out and take out the garbage, and I do my brain brushing and whatever else I'm doing for myself, where I am consciously choosing my mindset, my outlook, my perspective, how much money I would like to make, also a mindset.
Yeah.
These are all pieces. When you are putting those pieces into place and reinforcing them on the daily, magic happens. And again, you can call it prayer, you can call it a spell, you can call it manifesting or a placebo. Magic, it doesn't matter what you call it, it happens. Like this is an actual process that changes. If you are a skeptic, this is going to be hard for you. I'm not going to lie, but
Yeah.
it's still possible.
Well, skeptics are manifesting also.
Mhm.
They're just not aware and being honest with themselves that they're doing it. But
Right.
skeptics have patterns, just like
Yep,
everybody else.
it's true. So I hope that this has been super helpful. I know we have more to say, way more to say about mindset. But there's we've got a few practices on the website. We'll throw some things up in Instagram.
And I think the other thing that Andy and I want to remind you guys is we also find our group coaching calls that we offer
Yeah.
weekly to be incredibly insightful, because a lot of times as a group, somebody else is asking your burning question, and you get to, and I think it's comforting to like look around and be like, oh, we all have like almost the same problems. My problems aren't
Yeah.
special. And there's a lot of healing that can happen in a group. And just to have your peers there, it can be incredibly comforting.
Yep. It's true. All right, friends, thank you so much for peeking under the fringe with us. We really appreciate it, and we will talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks for listening and being part of our community. Speaking of community, please head over to our website and sign up for podcast alerts and blog posts. And if you're looking for more resources to uplevel your business, create more time in your schedule, and improve your profits, we have a blueprint for your success that covers mindset, systems, business, teams, and tools. Think of us as your unaccredited university. Visit us at under-the-fringe.com and tune in next week for our next deep dive on creating more freedom and less struggle.